All right, hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to Talkin Investing. You're here with Tom and George. We had another big week. We had CPI, we had PPI, we had lots of earnings and a lot of noise. So we're going to talk about all of that and then some. So welcome to the channel. If you're new here or if you just got here, smash the like button. We're here every Friday after the market closes to discuss the market in general, the world in general, but specifically what used to be called the Bitcoin miners. And we now, I guess, call them data center companies, power companies, whatever you want to call them. So I just put the big board up on the right-hand side of your screen, and you will see that we did have a bunch of green today. We had a little red. We're going to look at what happened week to date. There was some wild outliers this week. This was a very strange week. So we had some week to date. We're taking a week to date, month to date, year to date. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of naysayers out there. There's a lot of the sky is falling. So we're going to talk about that too. And we'll see. I'll let you know what I think. We'll see what you guys think. George, what do you think?
Tom, we're a slightly negative day, but not a bad week. Stocks pulled back from Thursday's record high after weak CPI data. Another jump in oil. What the F is going on with oil? S&P was only down 0.2, NASDAQ 0.3, but here's some good news. Retail sales fell 0.6, so we're going to get a rate decline. We're going down in rates, people. Trust me. Oil is becoming a big problem again, Tom. We got back to $82, which isn't too bad, but I need it lower. Also, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, right?
Absolutely.
And guess what, guys? It's not over with. We have another quarter to go in this year, even though this quarter could be bumpy. The 10-year treasury, it's kind of weird. It slipped, Tom. I thought it would go nuts.
We're keeping our eye on those 10 years. Well, I think we got to keep our eye on that. That's going to tell us a lot about what's going on.
But here's the best news. You're here, and Tom's going to make it all better.
We'll see. Maybe you guys can make it better for me today. This was a bumpy road this week. A lot of weird stuff. The week started out strange. We do have a bunch of news from the stocks that we follow. And so I actually early on in the week had a hard time staying level. So when that happens, and I'll talk about this more, I kind of take a step back. I do not act rashly. So sometimes I'll do nothing where maybe, I'll look back and say I should have done something. But I think the bigger mistakes are made when you act hastily. I think you're better off. It's I talked about this like poker for those of you who play. You don't lose a tournament because of the hands you folded. You lose them because of the hands you played that you shouldn't have played. So we'll talk more about that.
It's funny. Your poker's a little different than my poker. Because I poker quite a bit. And then I hope at the end of the month there's nothing.
Oh, my. Hey, now. Welcome, Wesley. And welcome to all the members. I see many members. Alexander, Pogo. And so I see a bunch of returning subscribers. So welcome all. Share this.
Is it time for a poll?
It's time for a poll.
We're not getting a rate hike. Is it? What was that? Somebody just said Mara's Tom's best friend. Sorry, George. I don't think so. Just so you know, the 10K challenge update, I sold Marathon today. I only had 15 shares, so it wasn't that big of a deal. What should be the poll, Tom?
Well, let's. The big topic early here is going to be rate hike or no rate hike in September. Rate hike, yes. Rate hike, no. And you know what? Well, we'll do this one first, and then we'll do a second one. I see a lot of people saying they just got the notification. I don't know what the... I don't understand. I'm going to send... This is why I write a little note and send it out to the world, which I will do right now, because it seems like a lot of people never get the notification or get it, just as the stream's starting or after the stream's already started. So I'm going to send something to everybody that they can come join us live right now. So that's just went out. If you get that, that's because I just sent it. We got the poll going, or you're working on it, George? Or do I need to do it?
It is going now, Tom.
Going? All right. All right. The poll is on.
Yeah, I agree. Rate cut.
Going up, going down, or staying the same. That's our choices.
So I bet in July that it would go down, and it didn't. And it should have. By the way, looking at the numbers now, it should have gone down. And I think that it was a very bad mistake that we didn't go down just that 0.25. But with that being said, maybe there's a chance that it will go down in September. I think that if it doesn't go down, did you save that article that I told you about regarding housing?
Oh, yeah.
And Tom will tell you about housing and how housing needs some help. It's on life support.
Sour Melon Gaming said, just got here. I found the stream, all caps, nowhere. Not even on Tom's channel page. WTF, YouTube. This is what I'm saying. Like, I just sent a message out to everybody. I don't even know if people get those when I send a message. And I have no control over when they send the notifications. It is what it is. Tell a friend, because apparently YouTube isn't too keen on sending people our way for whatever reason. Also, one of the things that does help is if you hit the like button. So the thumbs up button, smash the like button. It helps the channel. Do you got line of sight on our likes, George? Where are we at?
We're at 29, Tom. 29.
29. We got to get to 150. I'll leave it at that. My lighting in my room is very strange. How can farmers
not sell soybeans? I love soybeans. Well, I think that's probably because of what happened with China. Like they were selling them to China, and they were able to switch it around. I think they bought it from Australia or something like that. Their soybeans.
I see.
Dude, we're in a financial fight right now. I hope people know that. I think we're in a global financial fight as well as a war out there.
Geopolitical stuff is big time right now, and I just don't see a end anytime soon. I just think we gotta batten down the hatches and just get through it. I do think I'm still optimistic. I'm going to tell you guys, I'm optimistic for the second half of this year. I think there's structurally a lot of good things going on underneath a lot of the noise that they keep throwing at us. And we'll see. We'll see. I mean, we're a month and a half into the second half of the year. And so far, I mean, the market's doing well. It's at or near all-time highs. Bitcoin's very sideways, trading in a very tight range. And the sectors that we're in seem to be, the AI trades on one day, and then it's off the next day, and then it's on, and then it's off. The software stocks are on, and then they're a disaster, and then those swings are ridiculous. But a lot of it is, if I had just not looked, if I went on vacation this week and came back, my portfolio is right exactly where it was last Friday. So, however, having paid attention in the middle, I've gone half nuts. So this is one of the problems with the volatility and paying close attention. It's very hard to get through all this volatility and not have it upset your psyche or panic or any of those things. So it's just crucial, and that's why we get together every Friday, and that's why the members, we get together every Tuesday after the market closes. So that's a couple of times a week to just kind of talk it out, because the retail world makes very bad choices, and it's not an accident, and it's not because they're dumb. It's because the pressure put on them is past what human beings were meant to tolerate. So that's when the bad decision making comes in.
Remind me this. I won't say it now because it's important, but I'm going to give you a little tidbit. Tom and I were talking, and we figured out the avenue of what's going on with the manipulation. And I mean, of course, this isn't financial advice, but this is what two schmucks, Tom and George, think. And here's what's crazy. Is I think it's right. And because they can't keep these down forever. So remind me on Tuesday, guys, because I don't want to say it now because, you know, the crazy people are listening. And and you know, they just call me a loser. But I really think that was correct on what we've decided. These are not going to lose. There's going to be something's not going to do well. You know that.
There's always winners and losers.
Yeah, there's always companies that do better than other companies. But I think overall, this industry is going to go nuts. I don't know about you who uses AI every day. I use AI every single day now, and I cannot imagine my life without it. It is just so helpful. I mean, and then it gives you some of the stupidest answers you've ever seen. If you want, try there's a little test. It's called the strawberry test, and ask them to spell strawberry and ask them how many R's are in it. And you'll be in shock that it says 2.
There's a few of the quirks that I don't know if they've ironed out, but I will say our next poll should be who's using AI, and then we'll find out which type after that. But I use it extensively at this point at work, for my investing, and in my personal life. But I will tell you, for me personally, I've come to the conclusion that it is, at certain things, it's the best assistant in the history of the world by magnitudes. However, if you're asking it to use logic or reason or forecast, if you've got people telling you they have AI bots that will help you trade, it is just awful at those types of things that require compute or data or research. It's if you know how to use it, and you got to learn, and it's trial and error. But it is, my advice, I'm right with George. Anybody not learning how to use the large language models, and in specific, getting better at what the prompts need to be and how to follow up, understanding when you get a bad answer or a wrong answer, that's not a dead end. You just haven't communicated to the machine precisely what you need. And again, on things like reason, if you want to have a philosophical debate, you've come to the wrong place, because it doesn't know which way's up on things like that. But
don't ask about God or about killing yourself.
Certainly not. But its uses are unbelievable, and
it is.
And we're at the very beginning of this. So
I'm going to tell you to check this out. Check out Yak Yak now. I can finally tell everybody to check it out. Check out yakyak.us. It's in there. And that was basically all made from AI. And it's freaking amazing. I own it. It's my project. And if you're not impressed with this, don't be my friend.
Yeah, please go check that out. And you can sign up. There's an app to download. No, George?
Yeah, there is. You can download it. I mean, it's fine. But I haven't finalized that because I changed the code. A few things I've just changed.
It's early stages. It's not rolled out yet. So we're telling people listening to this channel that you can be early adopters and help beta test and give us feedback. But George has put an unbelievable amount of time into that with the help of AI and
Barry, by the way. Thanks, Barry. Barry, he's been posting on his trip when he goes down to he's on a hike someplace. The guy hikes the whole country. He's hiking someplace right now.
Can we trust the link?
What do you mean? Can we trust the link? It's not. Is it a leak? Yak.us. I mean, I don't know if you can trust it. If not, you can yell at me. Manny, I'm not going to screw with you. I mean, it wouldn't be too smart to start something like that. Right. But what it is, it's a TikTok replacement, by the way. I'm sick of that, and I'm sick of another mega company, and I'm working on CUDAB for a replacement of that. And Tom and I, before the season opens, we're going to start streaming more, and we're doing predictive models, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's going to be good stuff. Very different territory than this, but good, clean fun. No betting. Predictions.
Predictions. Only predictions. I don't believe in betting. I'm serious too. I believe in predicting.
So
here's the difference, though, and you have to understand: betting is 1 for 1. Predicting could be 1 for 14 or 1 for 18. You know, thank you, sir. And here's what's crazy. I made that. I have no coding. Well, I shouldn't say I have no coding. I have very limited coding experience. And I will tell you that I do have an ace in the hole when I get stuck. My son's a hardcore programmer, and he can get through any of the big problems that we have. But I made it with Lovable, and then I had to get rid of Lovable because now it's a lot of back-end stuff, a lot of database stuff, and now I'm using VS Code. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to hijack the stream. I want to talk about stocks.
Well, and to be fair, George George has a son that's very good at this, but that was a breaking case of emergency situation. It very rarely went to that well. You really did this on your own.
Yeah, no, I did. And now it's all look, feel. Now, and here's the thing. I'm sorry to keep talking about it, but if anybody here's a kind of a coding geek, TikTok put a thing out called Monolithic, and they made their algorithms open source. So once they made those things open source, I was able to use those. And now it's so crazy. You're able to take and use different variables to come up with how you determine what's the next video for that person to watch. It's amazing. It's real. It's honestly amazing. And it takes learning. It takes videos. It takes learning and interaction. But I understand how you can control the narrative now more than ever before. And that is the key in this whole conversation probably today, is that's what they do. They control the narrative on everything that we see, read, and digest.
But to be clear, your objective is to have some counter programming that is not controlling the narrative, to let people speak amongst themselves. As Spin Second Serve said, funny, 2 Bills fans that don't believe in betting. We know better. We know what happens. We know how every season ends in a loss. Just not sure which game.
Was saying the other day that Josh Allen, it's his 8th season, and I'm like, yeah, if he doesn't do it this season, I just don't think he can do it. I'm sorry. It could be the curse of the Bills. I don't know, but this is it.
I say the same thing at the beginning of every year. This is our year. And then at the end of the year, I complain that I'm never watching the Bills again. So I suspect, why should this year be any different than all the other years?
I'm a normal female, just so you know. Just because I look like a male doesn't mean I am. I keep talking. Sorry. So anyways, Tom.
I see a comment that says IREN is the latest. Oh, we have a trend every time our companies announce a deal, they get massive bear attack to put us in our place. Sad. IREN is the latest. I 100% agree with that, Alexander. That trend every single time, and I can't go back in time and do it, but it was every time there was an announcement in pre-market, the retail investors understood the announcement and ran the stock up. And most recently this week, IREN was up all night overnight between 20 and 25%. And it had like a 5-hour stretch where it was just up 25%. 1 minute before the market opened, it was up 21%. Within 3 hours, it touched zero. So it lost all of that. It finished the day up 2 or 3% or whatever it was, but they did that with BTDR, they did that with CleanSpark, they did that with IREN. So all of these announcements that we've been waiting for forever, they did it with Riot. You know, we've been sitting here a long time saying it's time for these companies to prove it, not just talk about it. They need to get contracts. These contracts are significant, and I'm going to go through some of them because one of the flip side to that equation is while the shorts took away that short-term gain, I believe that all these companies for that reason, and again, that doesn't mean top to bottom. I'm talking about the ones I just labeled off that got monster multi-billion-dollar deals, and the stock ultimately went down in a 3-day period. Those are buying opportunities. So, not financial advice. I can't tell you guys what to buy and sell. I don't know what you own. I don't know, what your tolerance is for volatility and all that stuff. And understand they're going to be volatile. IREN moved 25% up and down all in one day. And wait till you see what the winner on the week this week did just in this 1 week. There's companies that go 10 years without moving as much as one of our companies that we watch moved in this 1 week. So, and these aren't nano cap companies anymore. These are multi-billion dollar companies. So when they make moves like this, it's crazy.
I'll be happy to let you know I own zero Mara.
I still own Mara. Yes, somebody's asking me that. It is my plan to sell 100% of my Mara. That is still my plan. One of the things I talked to the members about was I spent the weekend making a very specific plan how to liquidate out of my Mara. And a big part of that plan involved BTDR. And then, boom, we're going to get to BTDR news, but they had some news that rattled them. It rattled the market. It was a crazy day. And with that new information, I do not like to add. This is where I say, I talked about how it's kind of like if you play poker, I was a little bit on tilt because I had put a very thoughtful plan together all weekend long, and $1 billion press release made everything I wanted to do not make sense anymore at all. So I am going to be patient. That I am exiting that position. That's that. But I'm not going to do it in a panic or a frenzy because that's when mistakes get made. So I will let you guys know when that's gone, and I certainly hope it's gone next week. It's a short-term thing, and I don't have to sell all of it at once in 1 day in 1 second. But I gotta get out of that. It's the decision's already rendered, and see if I can find it. They got. Let me just sidetrack for a minute and see if I can just find this or not. All right, I'll come back to it. I can't find it right now. They got an upgrade. So, oh, wait. Time out. Our Moon, thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated. Thank you for being a member. Much appreciated. Armoon said, I know no one who has made money with Mara. Can we fire the CEO, Fred? Worst CEO in America. And I don't know. It's so strange. He doesn't. I don't know what's wrong with Fred. And you know what? Maybe he'll turn all this around and Marathon will go to the moon and, you know, everyone was a happy ending. But thus far, they have made a series of bad decisions, I would say. And it's a trend, and the trend continues. Now, they did say they expect to get 2 deals by the end of the year. Well, that's great. You know, I expect to win the lottery next week. But, you know, that doesn't mean I'm going to. So the market doesn't want to hear about expectations. The market wasn't even rewarding getting actual deals. Never mind just talking about how you expect to get a deal. So this stock is, I do think that Marathon is overly beaten down, but I think it could keep going and going and going because they're piling on and Fred's given them no reason not to, unfortunately. So, you know, they may win in the end, but my confidence is gone. So that's just a personal decision. I think we've got Armoon 899 has the same opinion. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's Fred. I don't know if it's somebody else. I don't know what's going on over there. But ultimately, the buck stops with him. But he seems like an intelligent person. But it's just not going well. That's all I can say.
I was just thinking about, no one's even talked about AI in this aspect of it. The government. They're going to have to cut deals with people.
Not only is the government going to have to cut deals with people, but they've already announced a committee, and not just the United States government, many governments around the world have only just begun to invest money into AI. Because here's the thing, I'm gonna use somebody else's research, and I'll refer you to it, and you can make of it what you will. I think it's off. I think it's wildly exaggerated, but I think it's directionally correct. And there's a white paper from Leopold Aschenbrenner, I think his name is. He's the guy who runs the Situational Awareness Fund that got wrecked. I don't know if you can trust
his opinion right now.
Well, the thing is, he's another one. He was right, but he leveraged up. So, you know, he learned a lesson a lot of people have learned on Wall Street.
And he knew that 45 billion, he knew that was going to 200 billion. That's the problem. He just doesn't know when.
Right. That's exactly right. And in the middle, they took him out. Now, he does have some money left. That fund has $10 billion left. It's not all his. But that's a different story. But investing. Welcome. More Time 27. Welcome to Talkin' Investing. Thanks for joining. More Tim. You're right. More Tim 27. And earlier I also saw
Tom. I won't make Tom, but if Tom wants to, hopefully he could do a deep dive of why we think what's going to happen by the end of this year is going to happen that way. It's worth $5 just to find out this answer.
Yeah, I'm in. And I also saw earlier Wesley B. Welcome to the Talkin' Investing Squad. So a couple of new people, or people who change their names. Sometimes that happens too. But either way, all are welcome. So Leopold initially, I think he worked at OpenAI and he went off on his own. He wrote a white paper in 2024, and the title of that white paper was Situational Awareness. And it was a timeline on AI between that day and basically 2030. And his predictions, they go way beyond where I would go. But a big part of his thesis, and I do 100% agree with this, the world powers, he talked about a Manhattan Project level of investment. And
yeah, absolutely.
If somebody falls dramatically behind in this AI race, and I will say particularly the United States, some of you may be from here. I know we have people from all around the world. Our government, although we're $40 trillion in debt, so technically we have no money whatsoever, but they are not afraid to spend money. And I see them spending in the trillions on making absolutely sure we are at least staying in the race on this AI stuff, because it could be catastrophic to fall significantly behind.
So, Tom, since you brought up AI, I don't know if I did or you did, but anyways, did you know that China is basically making it open source?
They're doing a lot of open source stuff over there, yes.
Does that hurt us, you think?
I don't think so in the long term. I know in the short term, a lot of people are worried about that. The real, I don't want to spoil the white paper, but I doubt too many people are going to invest the time to read 165 pages. So I'm going to give the Cliff's notes. Don't listen if you don't want to. So spoiler alert. And this is just the absolute topside Cliff notes. He sees basically true, what there's referred to as AGI, artificial general intelligence. Now, that term is a new term. Sometime back, these guys all met in 1960-something over the summer and had a gigantic conference. That's when all this AI talk started, if you can believe that. And, every big name was there. And they talked about, a time frame for AI, and they thought it was imminent. Like, they thought they were, maybe 2 or 3 years away. This was in the 60s again. I think it was in the 60s, might have been in the late 50s, 60s. They thought they were a couple of years away. So as 10 years went by, as 20 years went by, as 30 years went by, and we were still not even really, the matter had been dropped for decades. So then they kind of refined it and said, okay, we're going to make up some new terms. It's not artificial intelligence anymore. There's two things. There's narrow artificial intelligence. In other words, a program that knows how to play chess, right? We know we have that. We have chess programs that beat chess masters. That's been true for a long time. But they don't think like human beings do. So that's narrow artificial intelligence. And then they said the other thing is going to be artificial general intelligence. That is going to be truly the equivalent of a human mind. Now, what Leopold added was superintelligence. And his argument was essentially, once the machines learn how to program themselves, they will have an exponential boom in their abilities. And he writes a rather cautionary tale. I don't necessarily agree with that last piece of the puzzle. I don't necessarily agree that we're even in the neighborhood of getting to artificial general intelligence. Having said that, what these large language models do, I find to be the most impressive piece of technology in human history. So I'm not saying these are not good things. I think they're used properly, and we will find more use cases. I also don't think they're going to steal everybody's job. I think they're going to make everybody more productive. I think that's going to result in raising GDP, raising wages. This is a very optimistic outlook, I understand, and a lot of people have some legitimate fears that this could go the other way. But I do not think we are in the neighborhood of artificial general intelligence. And I've talked to the stupid machine for long enough to know that, there are some. I talked to it about investing. It's laughable. It's laughable. the machine can't make the most basic, common leaps in logic as it pertains to an investment thesis. It's just, and then I'll give it a sentence and it'll 100% change its mind. And then I'll give it another sentence and it'll 100% change its mind again. It's like, do you got anything other than you're just going to wait for me to tell you how this works? So this is what I'm saying. Like, you got to know what it's good at and what it's not good at. Intelligence, not so fast, in my opinion. But it's an interesting argument. And the point of all this was there's going to be a lot of money coming in because they just can't take the chance that they fall behind on something so structural to how society is going to work going forward. So I'll skip to an article. You want to talk about money? Elon Musk to build the biggest building in the world, spanning a colossal 100 million square feet. Elon Musk in the state of Texas is going to build a 100 million square foot building. And to put it in perspective, that's 5 times the size of the Pentagon. For anybody that's been to the Pentagon, which was hailed as the largest building in the world back in the day, I think the Mall of Americas, which is the biggest mall in the world, is like 5 or 6 million square feet. This thing is so much bigger than the biggest structure on Earth. And you know the only thing it's going to do? It's going to just make chips. And
is that what it's going to look like?
What he has stated is between SpaceX, Tesla, and XAI, this 100 million square feet of chip making, he needs all the chips himself. This isn't even going to be for consumption by the marketplace. He needs all those chips so that what he's doing doesn't get sidetracked. So that's what kind of scale we're looking at for what's going on here. So I know you're going to hear an awful lot of people talk about, wow, we're overbuilding and we've seen this story before. I watched somebody last night go on, and it was a very smart guy. It's somebody I watch, but you got to take things with a grain of salt. And, you know, he basically came up with, we're totally overbuilt and all these stocks are going to crash. And then he gave a list of some of the companies that he's guaranteeing are going to go to zero. And it's like, well, one of those companies I can tell you was CoreWeave. Now, I do think there's some situation with CoreWeave that I think it might be a little bit overbought versus its peers, but I also think it's a big part of changing the game. They're on the cutting edge of this, and to guarantee that it's going to fail is beyond a bold statement.
Tom, did he also thank BlackRock for his donation or no?
He did not. That might have been in the fine print, but he didn't.
Oh, sorry. Rock, yeah, Rock. Sorry.
My point is, you're going to hear a lot of noise, and this is a guy that worked on Wall Street for, I think he might have even worked at Morgan Stanley for decades, and he really does know what he's talking about. Some people, I think, I just really think some people are making videos to get clicks, and
that's what they all do, Tom. Every single person that makes a video is to get clicks.
Well, everybody but us. We're the dummies. So I guess that's all I can say about that, because I don't think he believes what he's saying. And I don't think he's lying. You know, maybe it's a fine line. I just think people make things to make clicks. You know, I guarantee this company's going out of business. You know, this company's skyrocketing. This is one of the most popular trades out there, and he's saying it's going to zero. And a lot of people make this comparison back to the infrastructure that was being created back in the dot-com bubble. And it's just, you know, I'm not going to get deep into this, but it's apples and oranges. To compare those two is senseless. It's just senseless. So you got to do your own research, do your own due diligence. Listen, right? George and I are just two other guys too. It's like you can hear what we say, but go find out for yourself, because don't believe everything you hear on YouTube or Twitter or, oh, there's no more Twitter, on X or Snap or TikTok or whatever the case may be. Everybody's got their own agenda.
I'm going to tell you, at some point in time, this war is going to end. Whether it ends the way we want it to end or it doesn't. And when it does, I believe oil is going to plummet. Oil is so manipulated, you guys. We could do the whole show on oil and how much it's manipulated. It is so manipulated, it's not even funny. But Tom, did Elon talk about using the SNRs?
I don't know.
Small nuclear reactors?
Well, the problem is he wants to be done before they're ready, but he will use that. But what he did talk about is he will be building the largest solar panel field on Earth. Well, that's not going to power, that's only going to power a portion of a, trust me, of a hundred, but what, right, but it's an every little bit helps type of a thing.
5 miles of solar panels.
There's a lot of different ways. So what George is talking about is the small modular reactors. These are nuclear reactors that are mobile. Sometimes applies, sometimes that's an overstatement, but essentially you do not have to build a nuclear power plant. You can buy one of these. Now, a lot of them are a year away or 2 years away or 3 or 4 years away. So this is coming at us. I actually own a company called SMR, and it's a long-term play for me, and I add to it from time to time. No hurry to build that one, but I do think there's some companies out there doing spectacular things, and that is going to be a big part of how these data centers are going to be able to, because right now there's a gigantic not in my backyard thing going on.
Oh, yeah.
And if you can provide power out in the middle of nowhere, you can't really, it's exorbitantly expensive to do that if you're drawing from the grid. But if you can bring the power with you, now all of a sudden, every place is a potential data center. And we're going to talk about outer space. That might be an exaggeration, low Earth orbit anyway. There's serious plans to get data centers in space, and the physics of that is so cost effective that I do think that's inevitable. As always, it will probably take longer than people are talking about, because these things are not easy, but it is tailor-made for that. Between solar panels, remember, a solar panel outside the Earth's atmosphere versus one on Earth are two totally different things. And no cooling needed. You're in the vacuum of space. So it's a very different equation. But that's years away. We'll see what happens.
Even as we talk about this sector, Tom, I get so excited. I do. I just, listen, in 20 years, they're all going to, I won't say they're all going to be here. We're going to be using AI so much more in 20 years. It's not even funny. And I would imagine that some of these companies that I'm invested in today will have done extremely, extremely well.
Some of this is a waiting game, and that's very hard. It can be very difficult to wait. And listen, for those of you, I see a lot of people throwing their, I won't say hate, but alternate opinions in the comments. I'm not saying this is happening tomorrow. I just said this is going to take longer than everybody thinks. It always does. But if you think it's not happening, I would just tell you, do the research. It's barring some global event, it's inevitable. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, AI is not going anywhere. It's just, I mean, and I don't particularly like the data centers, but I think people are missing the point. We need to make regulations regarding the data centers ASAP and do so many feet around them that they have to buy and something to do with the water and the power and blah, 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 blah.
To stay away from people's houses and neighborhoods and that kind of stuff.
But here's the thing that no one's talking about too, is how much they're going to be paying in taxes. And no one's talking about that because they're going to be paying a ton of money in taxes. I just know with CleanSpark, and I've tried Sanderville, and they've been paying them almost, don't quote me, but close to seven figures. I know they've paid them over seven figures, but I want to say close to seven figures a month. But I know that seems like a lot, but it's crazy the amount of money they're paying in taxes.
Well, that's, listen, that's good for the local economy.
It's just funny.
What?
Just reading the stuff, and I just can't comment on anything.
I'm not, for the record, I'm not a rocket scientist by any stretch of the imagination. So,
Tom, but you did call me one thing: super intelligent. I'm taking that,
and I believe that, George.
I'm not AI. I'm super intelligence. Okay, I did another poll. Is IREN a good buy at this price? And 64% said yes, and 36% said no. Tom, you got another poll before we switch into another category?
What were we going to do? We had one lined up.
I know, but you had it lined up. You had it in your head.
I had it in my head, and it was... Oh, you've already moved on. You're already a poll ahead of me.
I know. I keep moving. Gotta keep the people engaged.
All right, let's do I'm going to call it a Neo Cloud poll. Which stock is the best buy? And the true Neo Cloud plays. Well, there's. I'll add a fourth. It's. Ready for the stock tickers, George?
Yeah, you go ahead.
CRWV.
CW.
NBIS.
NBIS.
IREN.
I've heard of them.
And APLD. Because there's different business models. We have a list of stocks. Some of the stocks are going to be what you would call a landlord. They have access to power. They've already built the infrastructure to maintain a data center, but they're just going to lease out the space and just make money that way. Other of these, the true neo clouds, are actually going to build out the infrastructure, not just have the power, not just have the data center space. They're going to fill it up with GPUs and rent out the compute. So one is renting out the space and the power. The other's renting out the compute. Those are two different cost equations. One is a lot more CapEx heavy, but there's also a lot of upside to it.
Tom, we're at 68 likes. Please hit the like button.
68 likes. Thank you guys very much. Yeah, smash the like button. It helps us out in real time. And we need it because apparently our stream is just pretty much being hidden, it would seem. I don't know. I'm just going to, General Properties is talking about Chainlink. I had Chainlink like 6 years ago. Always a lot of talk. If I can say something nice about it, it would be that it's been around longer than many of the others. I did not read the article, but I've seen articles and thumbnails about how Chainlink is dead. So I can give you no details on that. George, maybe you know more than I do, but that seems to be this week.
I know nothing.
I know nothing. It seems to be a big talking point this week. That is the only thing I know.
I'm still waiting to find the real satellite footage of, or video footage of the rocket crashing into Mars. I mean, into the moon. Did you hear about that?
No.
Supposedly Elon shot a rocket and crashed it into the moon.
That sounds like fake news.
And then he said, and he did like the Despicable Me. He says, I own the moon.
This is what I'm going to say, because I see a lot of Elon Musk hate. I suspect that's adjacent to something else entirely, but I don't know that. I was a big Elon Musk doubter for many, many years. But his net worth is now somewhere around $1.5 trillion. That's like 7 times more than the second richest person on Earth. And he has 2 of the 15 biggest companies in the history of the world. And although he tends to be absolutely late on every deadline, and that's why I say, these things aren't going into space anytime soon. He does everything he says he's going to do, and he does it better. He does it, even though he's late, he does it better. He does it faster, and he makes money at it. So I'm not going to bet against the guy who's already won every game he's ever played against. He was a tiny player, and now he's just when he started making cars, his car company, and I know it's a lot more than a car company. I understand all that. His one car company is worth more than all the rest of them in the world added up, put together. So I just feel like he does know how to win, and unlike me, he is a rocket scientist. So like, these aren't just wild ideas. He understands the obstacles that stand in the way, and that's why he's building 100 million square foot building to bring his supply chain in. It's why he started mining for rare earth materials himself. He's getting a hold of his supply chain. And Dave said, Elon, quote, claiming he will launch data centers from factories on the moon. He may be nuts. Listen, there's some things that he says that I go, come on. He's got $1 trillion bonus clause at SpaceX if he can get a civilization of 1 million people living on Mars. Now, for me personally, if I could bet all my money that I have that's not going to happen in my lifetime, and which means it's not going to happen in his lifetime, I would bet that. So I understand the people that are skeptical. His time frames are often, to say they're aggressive would be an understatement. But he wins.
All right,
I can't deny it. He wins. I'll leave it at that. Gambit Beer, member for 47 months. Thank you very much, Gambit Beer. Hi, Tom and George. Have you added 3 billion MC, former Bitcoin miner, now data center infrastructure provider, Ionic, to your company's list? I'm writing it down right now.
Gambit, I was thanking you earlier. Gambit. Barry, I was thanking you earlier today, by the way, for your help with the Yak. And thank you again.
I will talk about, thank you, Gambit Beer. I'm going to look into that just like I looked into, I don't know if it was you or somebody else, mentioned what's the let me go take a look. White fiber. So I'm going to talk about white fiber today and Bit Digital, because that was a very compelling conversation we had, and I think it deserves more talk. So I will look into Ionic as well and get up to speed before I talk about it. But I do think I spent a bunch of time. There's something very interesting going on there. And to me, it's more of an arbitrage situation where there could be an opportunity. And Dave is saying, Meet Kevin is putting together a case that SpaceX will merge with Tesla. I believe that. I believe that could happen. I think there's better than a 50% chance that will happen. So that, I don't know a lot about it. It just makes common sense to me. And one of the things is Elon Musk has voting power at SpaceX. So it's not that he owns a majority of the stock. It's that he owns a majority of the voting stock. And that's not going to change. And I don't think that's true at Tesla. So I think bringing them all under the same umbrella would put him back in the driver's seat where I think he wants to be. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, is for each investor to decide. But I think that's definitely on the table.
Wow. Dude, I'll tell you what, this whole thing in Florida is getting even more interesting. They're talking about doubling the capital gain tax in Florida now, so you can make $1 million per house and not pay taxes on it.
Well, they can't do that
for federal taxes.
Right.
They like to push the envelope down there.
And Dave's saying it also removes restrictions to give Elon his $1 trillion bonus. So you guys can look into that. I don't know if that's true or not, but he's saying that's in the fine print. I'll tell you this. If he gets his $1 trillion bonus, in my opinion, it won't be because he built a civilization of 1 million people on Mars. The logistics of that is mind-boggling. The difference between going to the moon and going to Mars is the difference between being in your living room and walking to the bathroom and, flying intercontinental flight to the other side of the world. So those two things don't resemble each other in any way, shape, or form.
Well, wouldn't it be the difference between being a millionaire and a billionaire?
It would be the difference between being a millionaire and a trillionaire.
Oh, okay. Wow.
That's what different scales those are. So you guys can do your own due diligence. Dave's saying Elon thinks he's got a way to avoid all that and just get his $1 trillion. So I'm ignorant on that matter. I do know there's a $1 trillion clause in there, but you guys can check it out. And then why not just send robots to Mars and the moon? A lot of people are talking about that, and I do think robots, and remember, Elon Musk is at the cutting edge of robots as well. So, listen, it started pouring. I'm in Southwest Florida. The rain comes and goes very rapidly here. So I walked out of the building for lunch. There was a canopy. It wasn't even raining at all. By the time I got to the end of the canopy, it was a torrential downpour. So the guy that I was at lunch with pressed a button and his Cybertruck came and picked us up. Literally. So, I mean, this stuff's real. Right? I got to tell you, I was very skeptical. I was the ultimate skeptic on technology just like that. But that's not, and it didn't, it was a very complicated parking lot. It knew directionally exactly how it, and it was, there was a shortcut, but it would have been going the wrong way. So it knew, and it drove around, and it came to exactly where we were and picked us up. And then it drove us home, by the way. He hasn't touched the steering wheel since he bought the car. So this is what I'm saying. Like, that is some technology that I naysayed for a long time, but I'm looking at it, so I can't deny it anymore. I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I say naysay as the primary source, at least in the next 10 years, as the primary source of driving.
Yeah, I don't think that's right. It's still very early in that technology. There's still a lot of barriers between that and just everybody living in an autonomous driving world. I understand that, but it's very impressive. This thing, and you can put it in, what do they call it? Mad Max mode. And which is what George drives in, by the way, as he doesn't need a button on his car. He's in Mad Max mode. But yet he hasn't been in an accident. I shouldn't even jinx you, George. It
would be somebody else anyways.
But I've seen you take big trucks through very small holes at high speeds. And I sit in the passenger seat and don't blink because I just been there long enough to know I think that move's insane, but I know George has got it. So,
Tom, the ladies kind of feel the same way.
I used to hear that word on the street, but
sorry. Tom, I'm dying to hear about Riot. Up 28% pre-market.
I will get into Riot. I just want to make a note because Gambit's Beer said the members video didn't save on the channel.
Oh, really?
When this stream is done, I will go check on and see if that is up. And if it's not, I will see if I can get it up. I don't know why that would be. I don't know what goes on with this whole YouTube deal, but I will look into it. Thank you for letting me know that, Gambit Beer.
By the way, I don't think we've hit local bottom. I think we're close, but I think we just be watching on the stream on Tuesday. That's what I think.
Well, I'm going to play counterpoint. I do think we've hit the local bottom. Well, let's define what we're talking about. Are we talking about the market? Are we talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency?
Everything. All of it, yes.
I mean, the market could pull back. Let's just take a quick look. Let's go to the video. I mean, here's the S&P 500. It broke out on August 4th. It broke out of its all-time high set back in June. And, today it was above, it closed below, but at one point it was above its all-time high close. So, I mean, we are literally at the absolute top. Now, I believe if I go to the NASDAQ, we're not quite there yet. If I go to the Qs, we still got a tiny bit. I mean, this is not a lot of room to the upside, but we got 2.4% to the upside to be back to all-time highs. So we're at or around all-time highs right now. So to think that there's going to be a pullback, that's not unthinkable. That's not unreasonable, right? This line right here that I have drawn on here, the yellow line, this is the SPY, which is the S&P 500. That would be a 10% pullback, almost exactly from where we are right now. So you can never rule out a correction. That's technically officially a correction. It's not a bear market, but those happen all the time. I mean, look at what just happened. 9.86%. So there's your correction. We get those. It could happen, and there's no telling when. But in general, I think we're up from here. And the same thing is true, I think, for the data center stocks. I think they could revisit local lows, but I think we're about done with this sideways action. And a lot of it's a lot more than sideways action. There's been some pretty big pullbacks. We will look at some charts in specific later where I think there's some big opportunities out there. Just my opinion. Interesting. Pogo said, I noticed the same thing. I was able to access the live stream from my phone live, but when I got home and tried to switch to my laptop, I couldn't find the stream. I will try to fix that, guys. I don't know what the heck went on there.
Yeah, member video did not show up.
I don't get it. That's infuriating, but I'll see if I can fix it. Sorry, guys. That's not me. I didn't turn it off or anything like that. It's a YouTube thing that obviously I got to go try to fix. All right, let's get to Riot. Let's get to BitDR. We'll start with Riot. Well, let's take a look. So NeoCloud, which one's the best buy right now? Wow, there is a runaway on this one. So CoreWeave, which is the big dog, and I'm going to look at CoreWeave too because they had earnings. Nibius, so CoreWeave at 11%, Nibius at 16%. They are the second biggest. They're big time. IREN won this thing with 68%. So with 4, and then Applied Digital in last place with 5%. So for taking the top 4, that is a dominant victory. And I actually happen to agree with it 100%. I think IREN is totally mispriced versus its peers. And I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't care. Actually, I care a little because I have some options that expire September 18th, which did very well this week, by the way. So those were $40 options. They went up very nicely this week. I'm not ready to sell them. I think there's more room to run because IREN's a $75 stock for me. That's my should have been there a month ago price target. So I don't know how long that's going to take or when it's going to get there, but I'm not even thinking about it until we get to $75. And it's clearly, in my opinion, mismatched with its peers that are on that board. But we'll take a look at all of them because they're all pretty compelling. And one of those companies went absolutely bananas this week. So we'll take a look at that as well. So Pogo saying Keel's up after hours. Is it up significantly, or is it just the after hours stuff is starting to be less and less and less meaningful because these companies do weird things in after hours, and then as soon as the clock strikes the market opening, it all disappears instantaneously. Sourmelon Gaming, that is exactly what I'm going to talk about because what's going on there is a little bit out of order. So, but first, let's talk about Riot. Riot, which got a bump of exactly nothing on the news that it signed a $9.1 billion contract. So, I had talked about the fact that there's one company I'm going to sell, which is Marathon. One company on the hot seat, which is Keel, formerly Bitfarms. And one company in the batter's box getting ready to be on the hot seat. And that was Riot. And to me, they all had the same thing that they had to do. They had to go get a deal and prove somebody, preferably a name we know, is willing to spend money and rely on these guys and sign a deal. Well, Riot got that. Riot Platforms reports second quarter. So they reported their second quarter. I read so many articles talking about how, Riot had massive pre-market movement on their quarterly earnings. And you guys know none of that had anything to do. Nobody cares about their quarterly earnings. All of these companies' quarterly earnings reflect their Bitcoin mining activity. They're pretty much all not going to be mining Bitcoin after the next halving. I know there's some exceptions, but these companies are being priced as data centers. So here we go. Number one, completed delivery of the initial 25 critical IT megawatts to AMD on time and on budget, with the second 25 critical IT megawatt expansion under construction. So that was a smaller deal, but it's with a name we know, a big name, AMD. That was good. But bigger than that, executed a 20-year data center lease with, at the time, what they reported, a leading frontier AI lab. This later turned out, I believe, to be Anthropic, for 191 megawatts of critical IT capacity at Riot's Rockdale campus, expected to generate approximately $9.1 billion in the total contract revenue over the initial term. This is a 20-year term. So, for about $450 million a year for the next 20 years. And remember, this is another one of those landlord-tenant situations. So most of this money is going straight to the bottom line. So this is a game-changing deal for these guys. And the stock did not move. Again, another one of these pre-market deals. It looked like we were off to the races and nothing. I think when we go look, I think Riot might actually be down on the week. So this deal got priced in at zero. So this is what I'm saying. These are when, to me, you can identify opportunities. They just got a $9.1 billion deal. That's bigger than everything, all the business they've done as a company, all added up, put together since the day they opened their doors. It's going to throw more profit to the bottom line by a mile than everything they've ever done in their history. And it's being priced at zero. So you make the call. But that's what happened. I think there's a couple of insightful things down here. Let's see. Subsequent to the quarter end, Riot announced the execution of a data center lease and service agreement with one of the world's leading frontier AI labs for 191 megawatts. The data center lease carries an initial term of 20 years running through June 2048 and is expected to generate approximately $9.1 billion in total initial contract revenue. The data center lease also includes 2 5-year extension options at the tenant's election, representing a total potential contract value of approximately $16.1 billion if both of those are executed. Okay, NOI contribution. Estimated cumulative net operating income on their $9.1 billion deal, somewhere between $7.3 billion and $8.2 billion of that $9.1 billion is going to the bottom line. This is what I'm saying. So that's an average of somewhere between $365 million and $411 million a year of profitability. That's not top line, that's bottom line. So again, this got priced in to the price of this stock at zero. And it's worse than that because this stock got destroyed in the 4 weeks prior to this. So it was already down massively. They get this contract and it gets priced in at zero. That's where Riot's at right now. So you can take a look and decide if you think that's something that, works for you or not. But that's what happened. make of it what you will. All right, that's Riot. Here, I'm going to go next to what kind of threw me for a loop. Is it not here? This is what threw my plans for a loop. Monday morning, BitDeer Technologies announces a $1 billion at the market offering. So this was a huge part of my sell Riot thesis. I thought the timing was right because both of these stocks had been beaten down. I would sell my Riot, buy BitDeer. Now the reality was BitDeer went down 20% that day on this news. So, in theory, you would think this became a more attractive deal. But the thing is, if you go to BitDeer, and I do plan on buying BitDeer. I already have a position in BitDeer, so I kept that, and I plan on adding to it. The market cap's $2.4 billion, and they're raising $1 billion. That's a pretty significant dilution. This was, in all likelihood, Plan C for BitDeer. Plan A being Plan D. Plan A being go out and find some traditional financing because they're doing a build out and other companies of their peers have found traditional financing, some as low as 6%. So that would have been Plan A. Plan B would be, all right, well, maybe we can't get, premium finance, the premier financing, but maybe we can get, 8 or 9 or 10% financing. Well, apparently they couldn't get any of that either. All right, well, maybe we can do some preferred shares that, like almost every single one of their peers has. Maybe we can do some preferred shares at, 0.5% interest, or a lot of their peers have done 0% interest or 1% interest. Well, they couldn't do that either. The last on the ring of raising money, an at the market offering is the very last option, basically. So, and you'll notice we've gone several years without any of these companies doing meaningful at the market offerings. And there was a 2022, 2023, the beginning of 2024, where all of these companies were doing at the market offerings faster than you could keep up with. I mean, it was dilution city and it was making people crazy. Well, that valve turned off quite intentionally because it was destroying the value of their stocks. And diluting yourself when you're down 60, 70, 80% is not the greatest idea. So now they don't have to go out and do all this dilution at $9. And I certainly hope they don't, because this company, again, they just got a gigantic contract. I think it was $4-point-something billion, and it was going to throw off $280 million of profit a year, very similar to what we just looked at. And it didn't really get a jump on that. And now they go borrow the money, or they dilute themselves to get the money to execute the deal, and their stock goes down 20% in one day. Having said that, it did change things for me to the point where I was not going to act hastily, and I didn't do it. It's still in the same neck of the woods. I'm not going to catch the absolute bottom, because you can see this was under 9 in the 8s. But you know what? BitDeer, at whether it's at $8.76 or $9.50 or whatever, I do think, and I'm going to think about it over the weekend, but I feel like this is wildly undervalued at $2.5 billion. Because in addition to this gigantic deal that they got, remember, they are now the largest publicly traded Bitcoin miner in the world. They mined almost 1,000 Bitcoin last month. And they make their own machines, so their CapEx cost is basically given to themselves because they make their own machines. They're the they rival or are the best, most efficient machines on the market, and they continue to grow their fleet on a consistent basis because, you know, the math works for them. They make money every time they mine a Bitcoin. So, you know, between those two things, all added up, put together, this is a $2.4 billion market cap. And to put it in perspective, so if I look, just going to do this real quick. If you look at BitDeer, this year they're looking for just under $1 billion of revenue. Next year, they're looking for just under $1.5 billion of revenue. This is a $2.5 billion market cap company. If I go to one of their peers, TeraWulf, this is an $8.5 billion company. More than 3 times the market cap. And if you go take a look, they're planning on doing $270 million and $900 million. So even in 2027, BitDeer's revenue is going to be maybe 50-60% more than TeraWulf, but TeraWulf's market cap is more than triple. So I think there's a lot of things that are out of balance. And the funny thing is, if you look at TeraWulf, I'm not saying TeraWulf's overpriced. That is not my point. If you look at Wolf, this is down dramatically to what I think is a really good line of support. So TeraWulf at $8.6 billion in the last 2 months is down 41.5%. Right to the bottom, this was down 50%. And yet still, it's 3 or 4 times the market cap of BitDeer, which means what are they saying about BitDeer? So comparing market cap to market cap, there is a monumental amount of data points to look at here. And I do think if you dig in, there's opportunities everywhere you turn. Having said that, to George's point earlier, not everybody's going to win. So, I understand that. Let's see what poll we got. Will quantum computers break Bitcoin? So this has been a growing and growing and growing talking point. I talked about this a lot for a few months, and I've tried to leave it alone a bit because I think people were getting sick of hearing about it. But I see article after article and video after video, and it's on CNBC and Bloomberg and you name it. Like, this is a big topic. My answer to this is no. And there's 2 different questions, really. My answer to will quantum computing actually break the Bitcoin blockchain? The objective answer to that is no. Because even if quantum computing does everything that they hope it will do 15 years from now, it still can't do what's necessary to break the Bitcoin blockchain. But what it can do is and what people are worried about, and we're seeing some evidence not of quantum computers necessarily doing this, but of AI supercomputing starting to do this. We're seeing evidence of security breaches in wallets. So a quantum computer is never going to solve the next block in Bitcoin. It's never going to take over the network. It's never going to do any of those things. But that doesn't mean it's not a problem. Having said that, I do think we already have the technology to implement several different solutions to that problem. The key is going to be getting everybody on board and doing that in a timely manner. Yes, Katie, I am going to get to that Bit Digital. Is somebody asking about that? Because there is an interesting phenomenon going on there. And Bit Digital is something I left on my list but stopped talking about a long time ago because they exited Bitcoin. They no longer have anything to do with Bitcoin in any way, shape, or form. They are a company that treasuries Ethereum. Having said that, they spun a part of their business off. For a while, they were branding a segment of their business as white fiber, which is AI data center type stuff. They then spun that off and IPO'd it. And there's something interesting going on. So we can go take a look at that right now real quick. I haven't done anything with this. I'm not 100% sure exactly how I want to play this, but this is white fiber. So my first thought was, hey, maybe I need to add white fiber to the list of companies we're looking at because they are a data center type deal. This is a $1 billion company. So we have a couple of other $1 billion market cap companies that we look at. So it's not like this is too small. But that really isn't the interesting. By the time I got done looking through this, that's not what interested me. White fiber is trading at $1.14 billion market cap. Bit Digital, stock ticker BTBT, owns 70% of the stock in white fiber. So they are the majority shareholder in white fiber. In addition to that, they hold 150 or 160,000 Ethereum, which they are staking and bringing in revenue on that. So that's their business model. So with all that said, if you go look at Bit Digital, its market cap is $566 million. So if you go back to white fiber and just go $1.147 billion times 70%, that would be about $802 million. So Bit Digital's interest in white fiber, the open market is valuing at $803 million. Yet the market cap of Bit Digital is $566 million, which means Bit Digital's entire market cap is worth significantly less than just its investment in white fiber. Because remember, it's got 150 or 60,000 Ethereum on its balance sheet, and it's staking that and making revenue. So there's a business at work here. There's multiple assets in play here. So if you do an MNAV calculation similar to what Microstrategy does or Bitmine does, whereas those trade, Microstrategy has held ironclad at 1.0 being a floor. I was very worried it was going to go below that, but that held as a floor. Bitmine actually went down to about 0.85. It's rallied back. Might have that open here somewhere. So if we look right now, it's at 0.96. So it's still a little bit under one. So my point would be, and I bought a lot of this because at 0.85, Ethereum was very near its cycle low. And this stock was trading at a 15% discount. So it was a double upside. This is a company I like a lot. I will continue to buy more and more of this company. This company is stock ticker BMNR. So totally separate story. My point is, you can see the MNAV of this is around 0.96. If we go look at Microstrategy or now Strategy, you'll see the MNAV is at 1.04. It did get down to 1.00. And so this relates back because these are basically treasury companies for this strategy for Bitcoin and Bitmine for Ethereum. Well, BitDigital is a treasury company for Ethereum. In addition to that, they hold 70% of a publicly traded company, so it's not hard to figure out the value of that. The market prices the value of that in real time every day. So if you calculate the MNAV on this, it's at like under 0.6. So there's a dramatic, to me, I assume, and this is no guarantee, and there's a lot of variables, but all other things being equal, I think ultimately there'll be a reversion to the mean here, and this will get back to a 1.0 MNAV. Well, it may be 0.96 like Bitmine is at, or whatever the case may be, but it's drastically less than that right now. So why would I ever, the first thing is, why would I ever buy white fiber if I can buy it for 60 cents on the dollar by buying BitDigital? So it's an interesting relationship. Is anybody in either of these? And does anybody have an opinion on this situation if you've looked at it? I thought it was fascinating because you don't find, I mean, just straight up, BitDigital's interest in white fiber is significantly more than its entire market cap. So that's a pretty tough thing to justify. On top of the fact it's got a whole business on top of that.
I just can't believe it's BTBT. Dude, these guys have 9 lives.
They really, really do. We've been talking about them for 5 or 6 years on the channel, and it's been a wild, wild ride. And here they sit in another weird situation. I mean, this stock could double just to kind of get back to a reasonable valuation. Doesn't even have to do anything. That doesn't mean it's going to, but it could.
Where is it traded, Tom? Oh, it's Europe.
No, this is traded on the NASDAQ.
Oh, okay. I found it in Europe.
And you can see white fiber's traded on the NASDAQ. So that's what I'm saying. Like, these are publicly traded companies on the NASDAQ. One of them owns 70% of the other of them and is worth half.
Make it make sense, Tom.
It's, yeah, somebody please, because I can't. So, FYI, that's out. I haven't done anything with this yet. I'm thinking something along the lines of either, number one, just straight out buying BTBT and seeing if it catches up, or if I want to protect myself from the downside, because there is the possibility that the Ethereum crashes or that white fiber crashes. So if I went long BitDigital and short white fiber, that should be a good trade. But I haven't done that yet. Or just do protection by buying puts on white fiber. Some combination of that seems like something worth doing, in my opinion. Oh, and Katie's saying, I own $5,000 worth of BTBT, was swing trading it. I mean, it seems like the upside is there. I don't know what else. I don't know how else to interpret that. So I like that. I like that trade. I'm not in it at the moment, but I think it's fascinating.
Tom, you got another poll?
We already did the thing I'm about to talk about. Well, let's see where people, we haven't done our standard issue poll. Where are people at on Bitcoin? Just for reference, Bitcoin did pull back. This orange line at $64,915, that's where Bitcoin was when the U.S. equity markets closed last Friday. So now it's this Friday, and we are 2,000 under that. We're at 62,764. But this is the one-day chart. There's nothing really to see here. I mean, if I go like what? You know, this goes back to like here. Yes, we traded above this. Here, let me get this out of the way. We've traded above this a couple of times. We traded below this a couple of times. But for the most part, June, July, and now half of August, this is very, very, very sideways activity on Bitcoin. Now, counting from here where this I identified a while back, there was a bullish divergence that was evident on the one-day time frame. So this felt like a moment where we were going to get a nice recovery, and I think this really played out. We got a 15 or 16% move to the upside on the one-day bullish divergence. But if I have this open, there's a bigger thing at play. This is Bitcoin on the 1 week. There's also a 1 week bullish divergence that formed that we've only just begun to play out. So the longer the time frame, the longer these take to play out. A 1 week bullish divergence could play out over the course of 6 months. So I really think this bullish divergence should take us, you know, whether it's back to here or back to here, I think that would be the normal outcome. And remember, none of these things are guaranteed. There is no pattern that's a sure thing. You could easily, we gotta move up, and maybe all this bullish divergence is going to end up as some choppy sideways activity, and we do this. But I think it's equally or more likely that we go test some higher number. 70, I don't have a line on this chart, but I think you got 70, you got 76, you got like 83. I think all of those could be in play over a little longer time period with this bullish divergence on the 1 week. All that off of there. But again, as always, you know, none of this is ever guaranteed. There's a million different things to ways to look at this. Sourmelon Gaming, a Cayman Island Corp with Chinese ties, hard pass on BTBT. Well, and that's something we've been talking about for a long time. They actually used to have all of their Bitcoin miners in China. And then China said that wasn't allowed anymore back in, I think it was maybe 2021, maybe. And then they had to move them all. Well, it took them, after 2 years, they still didn't have all their machine. Never mind grow their exahash. They didn't even have their old machines back up and running. So I will say, as a Bitcoin miner, I had no confidence in them in any way, shape, or form. But this business model that they're doing, I like this better. I wouldn't invest in this if there wasn't the arbitrage in the middle of those two companies. I mean, one of them just straight up owns 70% of the other, and it's worth less money. One of those has to give. And I say it has to give. The market can be irrational for a long time, so I don't know when it has to give. It could be someday over the rainbow, not worth waiting for. I don't know. Get rid of this monstrosity. We lost George for the moment. Hopefully he's coming back. Okay, let's go to the next topic. Oh, by the way, if you would be so kind as to smash the like button, it is much appreciated. I don't know why my like button's not working. What's going on? There we go. The thumbs up, the like button, really appreciate it. Okay, so let's talk CPI, PPI. And I'm not going to spend a massive amount of time on this, but we can't really have the rest of our conversation without at least visiting this for a minute. Consumer prices rose 0.1 in July, as expected, putting the annual rate at 3.4%. More importantly, excluding food and energy, the measure rose 0.2, so this is core, to 2.5%. All of the readings were in line with Wall Street. So if we go look at Wall Street's consensus, you'll see. This one. Consensus was 3.4%. The previous month was 3.5%. We came in at 3.4%. Spot on, right on. So again, the narrative's been runaway inflation. The narrative mystifies me. If I go to the 10-year chart, there is runaway inflation on this chart. Can anybody guess where it is? Because it's not right now. This is within the margin of error of where we've been for the last 10 years. Yes, inflation tripled in 2022. We had runaway inflation. That's over. It's been over. But yet, for some reason, that remains the market boogeyman. It's relentless. I don't get it. That's going to be our next poll. What you guys think about inflation. Because I will tell you, and I've been consistent, I think you're going to see these numbers have long since leveled off. And, this is through, remember, all of this activity is through starting a war, having 20% of the world's oil cut off, and we still didn't really move the needle on this. So I don't know what people think is coming next, but we've kind of endured some big stuff and still went sideways. Okay, the next one. PPI. Wholesale prices were flat in July, below expectations for 0.2 increase. The producer price index was flat in July compared with expectations for a 0.2% increase. Core PPI rose 0.2% below the 0.3% forecast. So better than expected, better than expected. So CPI came in as expected, PPI came in better than expected. And again, if we look, here's PPI the last 2 months. Previous month, it was down. So the consensus was that it was going to go up 0.2%. Last month, it went down 0.1%. This month, it came in at 0. I mean, look at this chart. Does this look like a chart of runaway inflation? Right, this thing tends to be a little more all over the place, but there's no, you got a negative and a 0. Those are our last 2 readings. I just don't think, this does not, right, we did, April got up to 1.1. So if people were worried, 4, 5, 6 months ago, that made sense. Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense over the last 60 to 90 days.
Tom, I got to sneak out.
All right, George, thanks for joining.
I'll be in the stream, though. The chat. I'll talk
we'll
to you guys.
See you in the chat. Have a great weekend.
You too.
So I'll let you guys be the judge, and we'll do a poll right now. First of all, Bitcoin pricing at the end of the month of August. Well, this was pretty split across the board. 65 to 67,000. Actually, one. That was the highest one. And then in second place came the lowest one, 63,000 or under. So we were pretty much all over the place on this one, which makes sense in an extended period of sideways activity. It's very hard to figure out which way is next. I will tell you, without having traded a stock, the correlation that my portfolio has with Bitcoin has gone down drastically because all of these companies got out of Bitcoin mining or are getting out of Bitcoin mining. Now, I still own Bitcoin through the ETF, so that's one of my big positions. But my portfolio now tends to be much more AI narrative driven than Bitcoin driven. Having said that, I will say I've been building out positions. My biggest position in crypto by far is in Bitcoin, but I also have a position in XRP. That's my second biggest. I have a position in Bitmine, which is an Ethereum treasury company. And that's my next. And then I have a position in the Solana ETF as well. So that's the extent of my cryptocurrency exposure. So, you know, it's decent exposure, but it's not what it used to be because all of these used to trade straight up on Bitcoin. But that's just not the case anymore. Having said that, I would still like to see Bitcoin move and get back into a bull market. I think that's going to help everything, including while these companies right now aren't really getting much benefit from Bitcoin. I think if Bitcoin runs, a bunch of the companies that I hold will get some nice upside on, you know, a Bitcoin bull market. So although I'm getting nothing out of that right now, I do think there's value in that ahead. Okay, so before I put up the poll, the Fed Watch tool. So you can't see it on here because it's 1 day too late. 1 month ago was July 14th. On July 13th, the odds of the Fed not raising rates, on July 14th, it was up to 41%. On July 13th, it was 24%. That's now 67%. So this chart for September used to be a debate between one rate hike or two rate hikes. And then with a small chance that, well, maybe there'll be none. Now this is overwhelmingly 67.5% no rate hike. For those of you who have followed along, I've been telling you I have 99+% confidence that that is the outcome of this and that this would continue to move in this direction. And literally every time we have a stream, it's moved more and more and more in that direction. It is my opinion we will have zero rate hikes in the year 2026. I just watched somebody last night on CNBC talking about, well, this might push the rate hikes out of 2026 into 2027, you know, and they were still talking about, you know, are we going to do 2 rate hikes, 3 rate hikes, 4 rate hikes, you know, etc. No, I think the next thing we get 2 things. Nothing, leave it alone, and then they start lowering rates. So that is still my opinion. Now, the probabilities, according to the CME Fed Watch tool, the market is saying 0% chance of them lowering rates this year. So if I go to the December meeting, there's now a 34% chance that they don't do a rate hike. So 44% chance that they do 1, 18 that they do 2, and then a 2.4% chance that they do 3. 25 basis point rate hikes. That could be one rate hike of 75 basis points, but you see what I'm saying. So I think this is still massively skewed. I think by the time we approach, this is what I talk about. This thing changes drastically as time goes on, as you get closer and closer to a meeting. And by the time you get to a meeting, we are very used to, and this might change, we're very used to whatever one of these columns being over 90%, oftentimes 98 or 99%. So the market pretty much goes in with an expectation. That expectation gets met. It more freaks out on what Jerome Powell used to have to say in his press conference. Now, Warsh may or may not even have press conferences next year. He's committed to having them the rest of this year. But I do think this is a very different Fed. We've got core CPI at 2.5. 2.0 is their target. So they haven't reached their target yet. But on top of all this, we got a wildly disappointing jobs report on Friday. So in a vacuum, over the last 50 years, if you were to say the inflation report beat expectations and the jobs report was awful, you'd say, oh, I guess the Fed's probably going to lower rates. That's how they do it. But instead, the entire conversation is dominated by when and how much is the Fed going to raise rates. So I think everybody is intentionally on the wrong page, because I don't believe all these people actually think that's the most likely outcome of what's going to happen the rest of this year. That's my opinion. I don't believe that they believe that. I certainly don't believe that. I think the chances of a rate cut are significantly higher than the chances of a rate hike. That's my personal opinion. The market obviously strenuously disagrees with that opinion. That's not the right. There we go. Okay. So let's take a look at what happened this week to the Bitcoin. I'm still saying the Bitcoin miners, the data centers, the neo cloud, and you're gonna see something jump right off the page. This is this week. Nibius is up 48% this week. You can see this is about half green, about half red. I'm going to talk about some of the ones at the bottom, but look what did well this week. This is a Neo Cloud, straight up. CoreWeave, Neo Cloud, straight up. Interestingly, ABTC, 0% data center. They are a Bitcoin miner, straight up. Now, they are down catastrophically year to date. So I would take this week's price action with a grain of salt, because it still leaves them hopelessly in last place year to date. So this is a bit of an anomaly. IREN, Neo Cloud, Applied Digital, Neo Cloud, CIFR, TeraWolf, those guys are headed towards the data center world as well. So that's what ended up in the green. BTDR is a stock-specific story. BTDR did a $1 billion at-the-market offering. So they are down 16%. Even though they got the biggest deal in the history of their company, they also did an at-the-market offering for $1 billion. I often find it confusing as to why the market treats this way, because yes, your stock is getting diluted, but you are getting a smaller piece of an exactly proportionately bigger pie. So I don't know why the market does what it does, but it does. So what really this is saying is we assume you're going to raise $1 billion and it's not going to be, what you do with it isn't going to be worth that. So that's the built-in assumption. So to me, I didn't buy anything because that information came out of left field at me as a part of a much larger trade I was going to make. So I left myself alone this week. But I think this is a buying opportunity. Now, the other two things at the bottom, Keel and Marathon and Riot. Keel's the one that I said is on the hot seat. They need a deal. So they were down 10% this week. And it's because they announced earnings, and while Riot announced a deal on their earnings, and I don't think people were expecting that, almost everybody was expecting, or at least optimistic, that Keel was going to be the one that announced a deal on earnings. But they did not. So their stock is down 10%. Marathon, exact same thing. Marathon has said we expect to get 2 deals by the end of the year. No deal on their earnings. Down 9%. Riot's the mystery to me. Riot got a deal. I think their deal was a grand slam home run. And on that deal, on what is unquestionably the best news this company has ever had in its existence, the stock is down 7%. Now, maybe it was wildly overpriced and it needs a pullback, but I'm going to go look at that stock for a minute. So you'll notice, right, Riot was up at $30 in late June, so less than 2 months ago. So it's down 37%. So it's not like, once again, this is not a situation where, this stock was flying high at all-time highs, overvalued. The deal was already priced in, so by the time they announced the deal, it's a sell the news situation. No, this stock was already getting clobbered. And then they get this news and they go down more. If Riot wasn't the second biggest position in my entire portfolio, I'd be buying it right now. But I have more Riot than I ever thought I would own. And for me, I do think there's massive upside, but my dollar cost average into Riot, I'm up hundreds of percent right now. I still think that it's nowhere near where it should be, so I'm disappointed in that regard with the results, but it does give me the flexibility to go, all right, another 40% pullback, okay, I can wait it out. I think it's going to get to where it's going. But if you're not in Riot at all, maybe you think of this a different way. You go, well, they just got the best news they've ever got in the history of their company, and they're down, 35% in the last 2 months. So figure that out. So that to me is the biggest anomaly. So I'm looking at Riot, I'm looking at BitDR, and I'm also looking at CleanSpark that announced a gigantic deal, and they're in the red. So no credit for deals this week. In the past, that was a game changer, right? That was a repricing of your company as a whole. Now, nothing. They're priced. You could argue these were priced at negative, as all of the companies that got deals went red this week. So we'll see. Time will tell. I think there's opportunity. If I can get to the bottom of this, I will make a trade next week. But look at Nibius. Up 48% in 1 week. That is drastic. And this has to do with, give me a second. We'll go through a couple of things here. And pardon the delay. I'm just looking for an article. Go to that one instead if I can't find it, because that was the next one I'm going to go to. So let's go to this one. Dan Ives says hyperscaler earnings, neoclouds like CoreWeave and Nibius show AI has entered monetization phase. That was the validation sign investors needed. So if you look at what happened in the quarterly earnings for CoreWeave, and we're going to look. These aren't projections anymore. These aren't, fourth quarter 2027 or 2028, or this deal's going to kick in 2029. No, they are now collecting revenue at scale. So I am actually, however, surprised this stock went up 48%, because if we go look, this reached an all-time, unlike Riot, which when it hit 30 a couple of months ago was nowhere near its all-time high of 76. Nibius hit its all-time high in June. And it is approaching that again right now. And it is up right after a big pullback. So everything got beat up in this space. That's a 50% pullback. Having said that, that's an 88% move to the upside. From July 29th to August 14th, that's basically 2 weeks plus 2 days. 88% move to the upside. I mean, that is drastic. These results were good, but here, this is the first thing I'll say. Nibius reports second quarter 2026 financial results. To me, this is a mess. I think they fed this into AI and it spit this out, and this is how they presented themselves. But if you dig through it, raising capacity guidance for the year 2026, this little chart that they highlight, August of 2025, 1 gigawatt. Then it goes to 2.5, then to 3, then to 4 gigawatts in May of 2026, and 5 gigawatts now. So that's a big deal. $8 billion in cash. That is vitally important. And that's how I'm looking at a lot of these neoclouds. I'm looking at the cash on their balance sheet. I'm looking at the debt on their balance sheet. I'm looking at the cash that operations is kicking off and trying to figure out. And last piece, the interest that they have to pay on their debt, and trying to make sense of, how long is it going to take these companies to turn the corner? Because I'm going to show you one where, even though I think it's a company that's going to win in the long term, they got a road ahead of them to get where they're going. Revenue up 454%. So let me go to something that I think is a little more on the next page. Here, this is a little easier to read. Revenue. 3 months ended June 30th in 2025, $105 million in revenue. This quarter, $582 million. That's a 454% year-over-year increase in revenue. This is what that article was talking about. They are now proving they're in the monetization phase of this project. Year to date, they're at almost $1 billion in revenue. They were at 156 million this time last year. That's a 529% increase year over year. So that's some massive growth with a lot more on the way, because they have a very big backlog. They also have $8 billion in cash. Now, they have a lot of build out to do, but this is a pretty healthy company, in my opinion. Having said that, unlike the companies we've been looking at that were 1 billion, 2 billion, 7 billion, 8 billion, or trillion, billion. Nebius is a $75 billion market cap company. Right? This has had the run. This has gone from $17 to $277 in less than 2 years. So it's up 1,843%. This says 5 years, but it's not 5 years old. It's only a couple of years old as a publicly traded company. So $75 billion market cap, that's 10 times TeraWulf almost. So you can see. And then if you go CoreWeave, and they're operating on a level above this, market cap $58 billion. So actually, if you look at CoreWeave surges, and this was 2 days ago, CoreWeave surges 16% on $2.58 billion of revenue in the quarter. We just looked. Nebius had $500 million. CoreWeave had $2.5 billion. That's 5 times as much. But their market cap is smaller. And one of the reasons is they have $35 billion in debt. My quick back of the napkin calculation looks like their interest, out of pocket interest next year is $3 billion. So this is a company that is trending towards about 30 plus billion in CapEx this year, maybe another 25 billion in CapEx next year. They have principal on their loans of $4 or $5 billion a year they have to pay back, and then $3+ billion of interest a year that they have to pay. That doesn't mean they're going to fail. What it does mean is it's going to take a little bit for this company to get cash flow positive. They got to do a lot of work. This is a very different equation than Nebius. And to me, the one that's the best out of all of these companies, that's in the best position, in my opinion, is IREN. IREN's a $15 billion company, not $75 billion. And its annual run rate in 2027, so by the end of 2026, they actually said, is going to be over $4 billion. So that means their quarterly revenue, they're trending towards $1 billion of revenue per quarter. That's more than Nebius has right now. Now, we'll see. Maybe they'll be roughly the same. They also have $7 or $8 billion of cash in the bank, but they're only a $15 billion market cap. So to me, when I look at these three, and I understand there's another 20 things you have to look at past that. You know, you can't just look at a couple of things in a vacuum. But when I do a deep dive on the three of those companies, the one I would invest in last is CoreWeave, even though it has by far the most revenue. So it's a fantastic proof of concept. But this is my biggest, so I'm doing what I said. This is my biggest position in my entire portfolio. And I think that it's underpriced dramatically right now. That's my opinion. But having said that, like always, please be careful Volatility is wild in all three of those stocks I just talked about. And this stock's already done the $75 down to $29 move here. Right, this was at $76 in November of 2025. It was at $71 in June of 2026, just a few months ago. After hours, it hit $74. You won't see that on the chart. So from here to the bottom, this was down almost 60% in 2 months. So IREN just got absolutely decimated. Now, I don't know if I left it open, but IREN had some good news this week. Let's see if I happen to have it. I don't think so. But they delivered, I think, 75 megawatts, maybe it's 25 megawatts of power. Find out. IREN delivers Horizon 1 to Microsoft. So here you go. Microsoft. They're two big customers, and they have more than two customers, but their two massive customers are Microsoft and NVIDIA. So the former largest company in the history of the world and the current largest company in the history of the world. So those are pretty good customers. IREN delivers Horizon 1 to Microsoft and achieves NVIDIA exemplar cloud status on GB300 NVL72. So that's also a big deal. So I just want to go through this for a second. Horizon 1 is the first of 4 50 megawatt IT load direct to chip liquid cooling AI cloud deployments scheduled for delivery to Microsoft at IREN's Childress, Texas campus in 2026 under a 5-year, $9.7 billion cloud service contract. So again, this is why they're saying they're looking at, by the end of this year, a $4 billion annual run rate on their revenue. They're getting things up and running. The rapid delivery of Horizon 1 to Microsoft reflects the agility of IREN's vertically integrated model, which provides end-to-end control across design, engineering, and construction of the data centers supporting its GPUs. I will tell you, IREN's been pounding the table before any of these companies ever said a word about this. They've been screaming at the top of their lungs, our expertise is in building high-tech data centers. That's what we know how to do. That's what we're doing. We happen to be monetizing it with Bitcoin because that's the best use for it at the time. And this was, 2, 3, 4 years ago. But they started every conference call with, we're not a Bitcoin miner. We're a data center company. And I think they're proving this out. They deliver these things like clockwork. So IREN continues to target a broader expansion to 480 megawatts of AI cloud capacity in 2026 and 1.2 gigawatts of AI cloud capacity in 2027. So you're going to see an awful lot of revenue coming out of IREN in 2027 and even in 2026. So that's pretty much the highlights of that. But hold on, let's see. There's one other. Oh, they really don't even go into it. So okay. I mean, enough said. IREN's a big position for me. I was a doubter 4 years ago. For those of you who have been with me long enough, you'll remember that I sold all my IREN stock when they were a $200 million market cap company I was very fortunate to buy it back at $6 when they did everything they said they were going to do, and the market paid no attention to it whatsoever. I had to change my mind and say, you know what? I thought, because when they announced their plan, they did a $500 million at the market offering as a $200 million company, and they said they were going to do A, B, C, D, and to me, it all looked like fantasy, but they did it. So I was lucky to get back in that one, that it hadn't run in the middle. So we'll see where it goes from here. All right, let's see what's left. Going through my little notes here. All right, a couple miscellaneous things. Just going to throw some stuff at you rapid fire. Worth noting, U.S. Treasury's paying $3 billion a day in interest on national debt. So this is one of the reasons that I remain incredibly confident we're not raising interest rates. We have $40 trillion in debt. We're paying $3 billion of interest a day. I don't think, and I know for those of you paying attention, you'll say, well, the Fed's got nothing to do with the Treasury Department and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But my best guess is this is a major factor, even though it's not one of the Fed's dual mandate. Market bets on a pause for September, but Fed hawks may not be swayed ahead of Jackson Hole. So here, all they want to talk about is how they're going to raise rate. So the market's betting on a pause, but nope, we're going to go to Jackson Hole. And I can tell you right now, Warsh already said, Jackson Hole is just one thing. I'm not making my decision on what to do. We're not making our decision based on the mood at Jackson Hole. So that's the Federal Reserve's officials gather in Jackson Hole in 2 weeks. They do this once a year. They make a big giant deal out of it. They'll come out and say some stuff afterwards. But the reality is, he's already been crystal clear. They won't be making any decisions at Jackson Hole. They'll have discussions, and then when the time comes, they'll have their meetings. And if they were to make a decision, the only data points we have so far is that jobs are struggling and inflation's in check. And there may be some people that can make a legitimate argument that when they go to the grocery store, it doesn't feel like inflation is in check. I would be one of those people. But the reality is, we had hyperinflation 3 or 4 years ago. And you can't erase that. So as we've brought the incremental inflation that we're having now is totally in control. Unfortunately, it's compounding on top of the hyperinflation we had 3 or 4 years ago. And there's just nothing we can do about that. It's done. It's not fixable. So prices are too high. It's too expensive. I shouldn't say it's not fixable. The fixable part would be to increase productivity, to increase GDP, and to increase wages. If wages were outpacing inflation, then we would be feeling better at the grocery store. But that's not what's happening in the United States right now. So that's the equation we need to be striving for, not somehow hope that magically the inflation that already happened years ago is going to somehow go away, because it's not. Michael Burry doubles down on Oracle, Micron, and Nebius shorts after saying it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Well, here. I happen to own Micron. He shorted it, I think, in the 940s. It's now at 971. He's doubling down on his short position. So when he did this, I said, and it's not over. I'm not gloating because this could go any which way. I think Micron's wildly undervalued. For those of you, I talk about this a lot. I've talked about it on the members only at great length. There's no... This is one of the most impenetrable stories in the market. This is just objectively underpriced. Now, the market can stay irrational forever. Maybe it will never reach its fair market value. I think it will. I think you got the Michael Burrys of the world shorting this and doubling down on their short position. And when they realize they're wrong, they're going to take their lumps and get out of the way. I said, ultimately, we will see one of us made a really bad investment. We'll see who that is over time. So too soon to tell right now, but he's doubling down on his investment. Now, I doubled down on my investment when this pulled back. So right, this ran up to almost $1,300. And then it ran down to the 700s. Now, I did actually say on this day, I was like, you know what? If this is what Michael Burry was talking about and he exited this trade, then he wins and I lose. But he didn't exit the trade. And now he's doubling down on the trade up here. So I think he's making a big mistake. Oh, by the way, I found a stock he's bullish on. Michael Burry likes Adobe. So he's going long. He does go long. He doesn't just go short. Oh, and the other thing is, if we go back to this article, he's doubling down on Oracle. Oracle's turning into one of my larger positions. So I'm on the other side. He's selling and I'm buying it from him. So one of us is going to get wrecked. Oracle even after a nice run up, and we'll look at that in a minute, Oracle's down 56% from its highs less than 1 year ago. Oracle's got a lot of debt. Oracle's revenue is going to quadruple in a 2-year period. Their net income is going to triple. If they execute, things could get in the way of that. So there's always risk. But I think this is one of the easiest money in the market. Not financial advice. I keep adding to this position. And I got in at or near the bottom. Right, so this is already, after the pullback today, this is still up 30%. But to me, that's the tip of the iceberg. Just to get back here, that's another 65% of upside just to get back to where we were in June. But I think this is a much bigger, much better company than it was back in September of 2025, and that's 130% upside. So no, this isn't going to 5x or 10x. This isn't one of those types of investment. But I think I feel like this is a very asymmetrical trade. The upside vastly outweighs the downside. We'll see who's right. Michael Burry's doubling down, shorting this. So that's 2 of his 3 stocks he's shorting, I own. The only reason I don't own Nebius is sometimes I just take too long to put my plans together. So I had a complicated trade and I was going to get into Nebius, and it went bananas. And that wasn't this run that it just went bananas. That was somewhere in this previous run. I was looking at it down here thinking this is gold, but I moved too slow. And then when it took this quick run up, I thought it's too late, but it was not too late. And that's the lesson. So we'll see. If I look at month to date, CoreWeave and Nebius are up 47 and 46% in the month of August. I mean, they are running like crazy. ABTC, I'm going to do year to date next, because bear in mind, again, ABTC looks like it's on a tear. And I will say, I don't think I was going out on a limb 3 weeks ago when I said, for the first time in ABTC's history, when this stock came out, I said, this is the #1 stock to short in the history of the stock market, in my opinion. I did not short it. I don't short stocks. The only time I would short stock is in a trade like I talked about, where I'm long one side, short another, as insurance, if you will. But this stock went down 98% from that day. So it's not over. It's not a short anymore. So now, yes, it ran up 32% from down 98%, and you'll see where that leaves it. It's still in last place by a mile. IREN is having a nice August, up 20%. It had some really, really bad months just prior to this. Bitcoin flat. At the bottom here, HUT pulled back 21%. CIFR 20%, Marathon 19%. So there's a lot of stocks that are getting beat up this month in August. The hyperscalers and neo-cloud companies seem to be doing the best, other than ABTC, which is the only remaining pure play Bitcoin mining company. But I'm going to go to year to date to put that in perspective, because this, I think, is just a matter that, down 98% might have been a little bit much. So it is now down 72% year to date. That's not from the bottom. Or the top. So even after having a phenomenal August, you can see this is running away with last place. There's only one other stock that's even down on the year, and that's BTDR. It's down 19%. All of that was this week because they're doing a $1 billion stock dilution. So, that kind of explains that. But the laggers, Marathon up 2%, horrible. Hive 4%, horrible. IREN up 17%. This is a huge disappointment in my opinion. CleanSpark 19%. I'm glad they're green, but I think these are still all very disappointing results. Once you start getting into up 50%, maybe it should be up a lot more than that, but it's hard to complain too much about being up 50% year to date. And then HUT is still in first, up 86%. So for as much as I don't understand this play, it remains the #1 play of the year among these stocks. So that's what's going on. That's what went on this week. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And if you have not yet, or if you don't mind, if you can smash the like button on the way out. Also, if you like this content and you're not a subscriber, feel free to subscribe to the channel. So thanks again. Special thanks to all the members. I still see a bunch of you in the chat. And thanks to subscribers. And thank you to everybody for showing up. And most of all, I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. Members, I will see you guys Tuesday night. And I will go look and see what the heck happened to last week's stream. Thanks again. Have a good weekend.